Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachakodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Exodus, the first chapter. And as we begin the book of Exodus, at this point in time, right, as we saw during the time period of Genesis, you had Jacob and his sons eventually come to dwell in the land of Egypt and were taken care of at the behest of Joseph. And so them and their basically their generation and their children and their cattle and everything came to dwell in Goshen, right, which was in Egypt. And so now, having been there for a couple of generations, for some while, we now see the setting of the book of Exodus. Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was already in Egypt, or Joseph was in Egypt already. And that's why it wasn't mentioned here as those that came with Jacob, because he was already in Egypt. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly. Fruitful meaning they were, they had a lot of offspring. And increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty. And the land was filled with them. So they started to become like the majority population, right, in the land, meaning they were, by nature, they were strong, but also they were a lot, right, populous. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. So in due time, in process of time, a new Pharaoh comes up, and he's not, aware or acquainted with Joseph and what he did, and so on and so forth for Egypt. So as far as he knows, you have these Israelites here that are now starting to become an issue or a threat because of how rapidly they're growing. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more mighty, or more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Because remember, we were still, serving in the land, right? Taking care of, Pharaoh's cattle and so on and so forth. And because when we first came in there, they gave us a place to stay and so on. But here, what this new Pharaoh was advising was let's put them into some hardcore bondage, right? Let's really squeeze and as it's going to tell us in the next verse, set up taskmasters over them and really put them to hard work. All right, because with how much they're growing, if we're not careful, if given the right opportunity, they could rise up, even against us. All right, and then basically take all we have and leave. Verse 11, therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And so they appointed overseers, as it says, to afflict them with their burdens, which were the labors or the labor that they had to serve in Egypt. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. So this started to become alarming to the Egyptians, the rate at which Israel was growing, to the point where it became, like a threat. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, so they intensified their labor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and the mortar, basically in the making of mortar, because they had to make which is like cement, right, a mixture. And then in the brick, right, which would be from drying up the mortar, and then using that to actually build. And in all manner of service in the field, right, husbandry, plowing, taking care of the cattle, all of those things, All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor, so it was intense. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shipra, and the name of the other Pua. And midwives are basically those that help you, deliver babies. And when you go into the names here, I believe Shifra means fair. Let's take a look there. Shapara, fair. And you also have Pua, Pawai, which is splendid. And so, as it says here, he basically orders them because they were the ones who would like help with the deliverance of the babies. So he gave them an order, right? And said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women and see them upon the stools. Now, the stools are referring to if you look up here, a midwife stool, it was like a seating. Oh, here we go, I'll read it. But it helped with childbearing or giving birth. So it says a midwife stool or a birthing stool is a supportive seat used during labor to help people stay upright, using gravity and leverage for pushing, opening the pelvis, and changing positions easily, with designs often featuring cutouts for midwives to catch the baby and handles for support, offering a natural alternative to lying down. Midwives use them to facilitate comfortable, active labor, allowing for squatting, leaning, or sitting upright, and sometimes even backward, aiding for a more physiological birth. And there are different images of what they look like, different forms, but that's basically what it means by the stool. So when it says here, and seat them upon the stool, so representing when they're in labor, right, as they're giving birth. If it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives fear God, or they feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, so he started to see, why the men still, they're still alive. What's going on with what's up? So he calls them and said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. So basically the Hebrew women are, they're more vigorous, and basically before the midwives even get there, they already have delivered the baby. As it says here, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. So before the midwives can even come and help assist them. And this also, you know, hints at maybe this order Pharaoh gave them was sort of not publicly, because if they had, say, public authority to slay the men, then it wouldn't matter if they came late, right, or they came early. They could just take the male children and then slay them. But more than likely, this was probably, him telling them to do it in the process of the birthing, right? Where, I don't know, snap the baby's neck or something. And then that way it wouldn't be, they could just blame it on the process of the childbirth. The baby didn't make it. So it says here, therefore God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. All right. And so the Lord basically, had blessed the midwives for this. And so Israel continued to multiply more and more and more and more and more. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And when you go into that, it's basically he, established their households, right? So that houses was like, families, giving them families, you could say, right? And preserving them. So as it says in verse 22, and Pharaoh charged all his people. So now he gave an order, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. So he basically instituted like some some like birth policy, right? Concerning the Hebrews, that is, to limit the growth, okay, because that's how much they were rapidly populating, and that basically started to put fear in them. And that brings us to the end of the book of Exodus, the first chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rechak Wadash. And until next time, Shalom.